The DVDs for Christmas. We didn't have cable, and I made the mistake of watching one before I went to bed one night, and I could not sleep. I was like so excited and thinking about organization in my home. So this is something that is fun to me and interesting to me and a passion to me. And so I hope that this morning I can share with you some practical help. We're going to talk about organization. We're going to talk about clutter control, and we're going to talk about just maintaining this work that we've now done in our homes. I'm going to share with you some general principles, but I want you to know that the applications of these principles are going to look different for each of us, depending on the needs that we have in our home, depending on our own personalities, depending on our families and our schedules. So I'm going to share general principles. I'm going to share some personal stories. But I just want you to know that this is not a talk like this is what your home should look like. This is the goal. The goal is just making your life as simple and easy as it can be and making your home work in the best possible way for you. And then at the end, we'll take some time. If you have questions, I'll do my best to answer them. And if you have ideas or things to add, I look forward to hearing that as well. So as we get started today, I thought it would be fun to play a little bit of a game. And so I'm going to read some statements, and if you would answer the question yes, that is true for you, just give yourself a point, okay? So, first of all, do you own a stapler? If you do own a stapler, you're going to give yourself a point. The next question is, do you know where your extra staples are stored? If your stapler runs out of staples, can you quickly locate staples and refill? The next question, do you know what your family's having for dinner tonight? If you know, give yourself a point. And the next question is, do you have all the ingredients for that dinner tonight? The next question is, would you say your house is ready for unexpected guests right now? Give yourself a point if you make a daily to-do list and you accomplish most of it most days. Give yourself a point if your bed was made this morning. Give yourself a point if you could quickly locate last year's tax returns. Give yourself a point if it's easy to find your purse and your keys and everything you need before you leave the house. You can find those things quickly and easily. Give yourself a point if you have recently, let's say this year, gone through your children's toys and gotten rid of the things that they no longer use or need. Okay? So I think we had about 10 questions. Did anyone get 10 points? Okay. If you got 5 points or more, would you raise your hand? If you got 6 points or more, raise your hand. 7? 8? All right, you're our winner. Oh, there we go. I don't need more questions. There you go. Thank you. You can have some chocolate. You can share this. So let's go ahead and get started. Let's talk about organization. So organization, the definition is just to arrange things in an orderly or a systematic way. That definition does not mean that it is magazine picture worthy. It just means that it is orderly to you and it is systematically arranged. I think we can all agree that left alone and if allowed, our life will become increasingly complicated and increasingly cluttered. Our homes and our lives don't need any help to be cluttered, but we're going to have to be proactive and intentional if they're going to be organized, uncluttered, and generally as simple as possible. So having an organized home has many benefits. It will save you time. It takes time to get organized, and that it will take time to maintain it once you put that time and energy in. But ultimately, it's going to save you time, whether it's getting out of the door in the morning or when your children grow and they need the next size of clothes, and they will wake up one morning and go, my shoes don't fit. And you either have them or you don't. So it's going to save you time because you have what you need instead of running out at the last minute. It's going to save you money. How often do we go out and purchase something that we probably have somewhere, but we don't know where it is? We can't find it. Or maybe we already have 3 or 4 of that item, but we're purchasing another just because we can't find it when we need it. And although there's many other benefits, the other big one that I think is important is I think sometimes we feel like our homes are disorganized, and that holds us back from offering hospitality or inviting others into our home. Our homes don't have to be perfect, but if we're not comfortable, if we feel like we can't invite someone into our space, then it's a barrier, and it's keeping us from opening our doors and letting others in. So the question would be, are we keeping our homes in a way that is welcoming first to our families, and then is it also welcoming to friends and others that we'd like to share our lives with? So hopefully organization can encourage us to take those opportunities and to extend hospitality to those around us. So those are just a couple of benefits, and I know that there are more, to why we want to have an organized and clutter-free and maintained home. I put handouts on your tables, and we're just going to talk about first 4 steps to organization, and I put just bare minimum on your papers. Feel free to fill in with your own notes and thoughts. So sort of thinking of organization as a 4-step process. The first step would be to consolidate. And consolidation is all about combining things and sorting things. So it may be consolidating a certain item, crayons, markers, pens, art supplies that are all over your house, bringing it all to one space and figuring out what it is that you have. Or it may be a whole room. Last spring, our garage, the weather got nice, we opened it up and cleared the entire garage out, and out on the driveway we were able to sort and combine and get rid of and reorganize to put things back. So the first thing you want to do is sort of define what it is that you are going to work on and get it all together, whether it's a whole room or whether it's just one item. And then you're going to sort it. I recommend that you sort by what are you going to keep, what still has value to you, what are you using. But then have a trash bag nearby. What's broken? What is really just trash? Put it in the bag. And then make yourself another pile for those things that still have value, just maybe not to you at this point. So those are things that we'll talk about, like she was saying, the tag sale, and we'll get to that in a minute. But you're gonna get everything together and you're gonna go through a sorting process. If it's just little items, it might not take you very long. If you're doing a whole room, it might take some time to systematically go through it and get it all together. Some personal examples or times when this is helpful, I shared about our garage last spring. Another time that I find this really helpful is at the end of the school year. If your kids go to school, that last day or 2 of school, they're coming home with full backpacks full of all of their supplies. And so we have a big day where we put everything out on the kitchen table, go through all the markers, like what still works, what's trash, what can we use again? Same things with notebooks and binders, and there's so much coming in. And so when it comes in, right then, take time, sort it, and figure out what are you going to keep, what are you going to get rid of. And as I've been talking about this, you'll notice that decluttering is part of this process. Often we don't want to part with things, and so as you're trying to decide, am I going to keep it, am I going to donate it? Some helpful questions can be, have I used this item in the last 6 months? And sometimes you need to ask in the last year. We do live in a place that has different seasons, and I recognize that, but have I used this recently? Another question is, am I saving this for future potential? So sometimes, especially if you have young children, maybe you're planning on having more young children. So yes, Those 0 to 3 month clothes, they have value to save. I'm not using them right now, but I want to keep them for the future. But maybe you are kind of a collector, and so you finish a jar of peanut butter, and you're that person who washes it out and thinks, I can use this for something. So I'm not saying you shouldn't keep that jar of peanut butter, but I encourage you to just think about the future. What is the real future potential? Is it worth saving? Is there another way that I can use it? And to realize that our space is valuable. Anything that we choose to keep may have a cost to maintain it. We're going to have to figure out where to put it. We need to arrange it. It may need to be cleaned or dusted or whatever needs to happen with it. We have to have a place to store it. Is this item worth the space that it's taking up in my space, or is it feeling like clutter? And we have to remember that the things that we're keeping are really only useful to us when we can find them and access them when we need them. So if we're sticking it in a bag and sticking it in the basement and thinking I might need that someday, but when the time comes we're not going to be able to find it, then really the future potential of that item isn't worth much to us. So that's a good chance to get rid of it.
I think like Marie Kondo calls it, does it bring me joy?
Does it bring me joy? And that's another good question. Does this item bring me joy? I know earlier I heard some women talking about sentimental items, whether it's artwork or maybe it's the dress that your baby wore home from the hospital or from another special occasion. And on sentimental items, I would encourage you to maybe think about, is there a way that I could display it to enjoy it? So maybe it's a dress or a piece of artwork. Is there a way that I can frame it and display it so that we actually see it and enjoy it, as opposed to finding a place to just store it and never having that option? Children's artwork is another one. I have a friend who makes a Shutterfly book for children's artwork. She takes pictures of it and then just creates a book every school year or every however often to store. And so she has those memories. She can go back and look at it, but it's in an organized way, and now she really can enjoy it, and her children can look through it. So as we're going through our things and we're consolidating, if it's something that we want to keep, let's just think about those questions and think about, is there a way that we could really make this, how can we do this in a way that it really does bring us joy and that it's helpful to us? So assess your items, decide what's worth keeping. If they're not worth keeping, either the trash or the donate, sell, give away pile. And the last thing that I want to say on this is just to look for natural times to do this. When my kids were young, not so much now because they don't have a ton of toys, but we would go through toys together every year in early November. Christmas is coming, and by going through those toys in early November, we got rid of the stuff that we already knew was trash. It helped me evaluate, what are they really playing with? What do they like when I'm thinking about gifts and people are asking me what to get them? It gave me a glimpse into what are they really enjoying. Helped me see what they already had a ton of. So if they're asking for stuffed animals, but they've already gotten a mountain of stuffed animals, then how can I help them enjoy what they already have instead of just bringing more in? And maybe there's something that they're not playing with, and they say it's broken, but it really just needs a new battery. So if we have those times that we're going through those things, then we can enjoy the things that we have and evaluate from there. The other time that I did that with each of my children was their birthdays. And so that was helpful because it meant we were kind of constantly doing it throughout the year. So when we did it, it wasn't this huge major job, and it was something that they were used to doing because we did it several times throughout the year. So in consolidation and going through things, I encourage you to look for just those natural times and be proactive. It also meant that we had room for Christmas gifts when they came in because we had already cleared out some of our previous clutter. So after we've consolidated, we've gotten everything together and we've sorted it, now we're going to deal just with that keep pile. What are those things that we're going to make use of? We see what we have, and I would say, I'm calling it containerize, and I will talk about containers, but I want you to think about that as finding a home for everything. Everything in your house needs to have a home. It needs to have a place that it lives, a place that it belongs. And so we're going to look at this pile, and we're going to want to figure out where are we going to store these items so that they will be accessible to us and so that they are neat. And so the first step is to find out where you're going to keep these items. Now, I am going to talk a minute about containers. I am a fan of containers. I'm not talking about going to an expensive store and spending a lot of money. Your container might be a shoe box or a shipping box, or it might be that empty peanut butter jar that you've washed out. But I think the helpful thing about containers is they give you a defined space. And they give that thing a home, and it also can make it portable. So when you're thinking about that stack of Legos or those baby doll clothes or maybe your children's clothes, whatever it is, once you've decided where am I going to keep it, I think let's think about, is there something I could put this in that would make this easier? And just a little bit on containers themselves. If you're buying containers, don't go buy them before you've done all of the sorting and before you've figured out where am I going to put this. First, you're going to figure out, all right, these toys would be great on this shelf. And then you're going to use a tape measure, and you're going to figure out how much space do I actually have on this shelf. You're going to look at what you have and decide, how big a container do I really need? Is this a collection that's going to grow? Do I need a container that has extra space in it? Or do I really want to limit myself, like, this is enough? So you're deciding what size container do I need? What's going to actually fit in my space? And I would encourage you to think about, is it going to be easy for me to get in and out? Is it going to be easy for my kids to open or hard for them to open, depending on what's in it and what you want that to be? And remember here, our goal is just simplifying our life. We want to make our life easier. And so what is going to make this the easiest for us? If it's not simple, we're not going to maintain it. If it's not simple, it's not going to work over time. And so once you've measured, you've figured out what you need, and you get your container, the next thing I would say is label it. Whether you just are writing on a cardboard box, if you have a fancy labeler, if you have young kids and you're organizing a toy room, take a picture, print it out, and let your picture be the label. And that way when your kids go to clean up, they can set out the containers and they can sort their toys into them, and they know exactly what goes where. So make it easy for them if it's a space that they're going to be using. I already kind of mentioned that containers offer boundaries, and I think that's helpful for me, and it's also helpful for my kids. If you have a container and you have items in it and that container is now full, it's a natural time, I better go through this container, right? It's full and I don't have room for any more. So let me empty this one thing and go back through that sorting process. What do I need to give away? What's trash? What's valuable to me? I don't know, when my kids were young, they were always getting little free toys. You go to the dentist and the dentist gives you a little prize, and you get a kid's meal somewhere and it comes with a prize. And to me, as someone who hates clutter, it was junk, but to them, it was like a precious possession. And so what we did at our house is we got a little bin, and that was like up to them. It was a miscellaneous bin. They could put in it what they want. So when they got those prizes and they got those things, it had a home. They knew where it belonged. They could enjoy it. And they knew when that bin got full, they would come to me and say, Mom, it's full. All right, let's dump it out and go through it. And so they would reevaluate. And so having that container helped us to maintain the clutter. It helped us to be continually going through and getting things out. Another couple examples of how this helped. My girl's bedroom was upstairs in our home. When we moved, I had a baby. And so we had a basket, maybe a tote bag would work, whatever, that we put everything you would need for diaper changes, an extra set of clothes. Well, that was a beautiful thing to have downstairs. I could change the baby wherever. My older children could go and grab that container for me. So it made life easier for us. Another thing that I did is with kids' clothes, underneath the crib, we had a lot of space, and so I had 3 tubs that fit right underneath the crib. And so the first tub was the clothes that they were like just growing out of, because it seems like they never grow out of all of the same size clothes at the same time. And so it was there. In the middle was the tub of the size that I would say they were in, and so it was basically empty. And then the third tub was the size that they were growing into. So in the morning when I'm getting them dressed and now they've grown out of something, I can put it right in that bin. It's taken care of, I don't have to think about it again. And I can evaluate, is this worth keeping? You know, is this the third child and it's done, or whatever. But right then I just did it and it's done. Or I go to get them dressed and their clothes don't fit anymore. I have that next size tub right there at my hand and I can just get what I need. So that's an example of how the containers made life easy, not just in the moment, but in the long term. I didn't have to go back and go through everything. I just did it as we went. And more recently, now that my kids are all in school, a way that this has helped is I realized they came home from school and suddenly my kitchen was chaos. There were school papers everywhere. They were trying to get a snack and it was driving me nuts. And so, you know, I'd say, hey, where's this? And they'd say, it's on the counter. But that meant anywhere on the counter. And so we just got a letter basket and put it on the counter. And I said, look, everything goes in there. And where that's been perfect is now it's all in one spot. They know where to put it. And at some point in the evening, I grab that basket, I grab my calendar, I can sit down and go through it, make notes on my calendar of upcoming events, sign permission slips, you know, whatever. If I'm running out the door to a practice, my kids play sports, I can grab the basket and it's mobile and ready to go. So it's a very simple thing, but it helped them know where to put it and it made it easy for me to find it and use it. So those are just some day-to-day ways that, you know, might be helpful.
I don't want to interrupt, but I know I will forget later. I have something similar, but the letter files, you know, where they stack on top of each other, little plastic things. I made my kids separate the important papers, and that goes on the top, permission slip, any notice that's pertinent to the week, from their return homework papers that go into the next bin down. So that, because I don't have time to go through their papers every night, so I know what I need to get immediately.
Yeah, that's a great point. So helping them, and that's helping them prioritize and think through and organize. And that's another sort of side note, as moms, we're teaching our children what skills they're gonna have when they leave our home when it comes to organizing. And so it's not just about us figuring out how to organize our homes, but also how do we help and teach them from a young age so that they can grow with this. So now we've done our sorting and we've figured out where everything's gonna go. Everything has a home. And now let's talk about those other two piles. So I called it condensing, but really this is just our step where we're gonna get rid of the excess. That trash bag, we're gonna take it to the trash. And that sounds funny, but how many times do we kind of go through and then we're like, all right, done. But we're not done. We still have the clutter in our home. So get the trash out. If you have a pile of things that you are gonna sell, take your pictures, get them posted, and write on your calendar in a week if this hasn't sold, in 4 weeks if this hasn't sold. Like, sort of give yourself a deadline. Like, if this isn't selling, at this point, I gotta get rid of it. If you have a bag that you're gonna donate to Savers or Goodwill, or maybe you have more than one bag, load it up and take it. Your job isn't done until you've dealt with all of those piles. So make it a priority to go ahead and get the trash out. If you're giving something to a friend, like figure out when am I gonna get it to you? And that might mean like I'm gonna right now, when I go to drop my stuff off at Savers, I'm gonna stop by my friend's house. Because I know I've had things where it's like, oh, this is for such and such. And I might see them every week, but I never like get it to them. It's just sitting there. So make that a priority, like make that part of your whole process is to get those things dealt with. And now if you've done a big job, let's talk about how are we gonna continue this. So we've done all this work, but now how are we gonna maintain it? How are we gonna keep it organized and keep going? And here I just want to make a side note that organization is always an ongoing process. Like, we never go, okay, I organized the toy room, check. I did the kids' room, check. I did my closet, check. It's done. No, you're gonna be constantly redoing it. The seasons are gonna change, your kids are gonna get older, and you're constantly gonna be reevaluating. Like, now you've organized something and you live with it and you go, wow, it really doesn't work. This part of it's not working and I need to tweak it. Because our goal is to make life easy, not to make ourselves organized. So we're never going to arrive. We're going to constantly be reevaluating. We're constantly going through all of these steps to figure out what works right now. But let's talk specifically just about clutter control. We've all been there. We've gone through it. And now a couple weeks later, you're looking at the space and you're going, it looks like I've done nothing. So what are some principles, what are some steps that we can take to prevent the clutter from beginning in the first place? Because then we don't even have to deal with it. And these are on your paper as well. And some of them may seem like common sense, and yet when it comes to like real life, it's a little bit, for me, it's good just to think through, am I really doing these things? So number one, I just said don't bring anything into your home that you really don't want, need, or use, even if it's free. Stop the clutter from entering your house. Stop and think when you're at the store, when you're driving by that free item and your friend is offering you something.
It's not so much the free stuff as much as it's people's feelings. Like I have my in-laws who have their in-laws stuff and their parents' stuff, and it's stuff that I really don't want. I don't even want to have it travel 4.5 hours to my house.
Yeah. But it's coming.
It's coming anyway. And I don't, and the sad thing is, my husband doesn't want to necessarily get rid of it because it's his mom. And now it's become an in-law of an in-law of an in-law. I don't want it. How do I deal with that?
Yeah. So can I revisit that?
Sure.
Yeah, that's a really good question. And that's different than this, you know? I'm talking more about the day-to-day, like, you know, somebody says, hey, I have this toy, and you're like, oh yeah, I'll take it. But before you make that choice to take it, like, think through, am I really gonna use this? Are we really gonna enjoy it? Is it really worth the space that it's gonna take up in our home? I think you said earlier, is it gonna bring me joy? Like, just think through it before you take it in. And even your kids, like, you know, whatever it is that's coming in, you can stop it before it ever comes in if you're evaluating, sometimes. The second thing is, and I already said it, have a place for everything and everything in its place. You realize if you have items in your home and they don't have a home, it's always going to be clutter. You can't say to your kids, go clean up, if they don't know, I mean, what does that mean? Where do I put stuff? And this has even stopped me sometimes when I'm shopping. I enjoy shopping. It's going, before I buy something, like, where am I going to put this? Where is this going to go in my home? And having that plan, again, before I ever bring it in. So just stopping to think before you accept, buy, whatever, like, where is this going to go? And I have very generous family that likes to give gifts. And so thankfully, we were able to sort of communicate with them, like, these are the things the kids would really enjoy. But we even asked a lot for, like, Zoom memberships. I heard people talking about the aquarium, like more experience type gifts, because my kids didn't really need more things coming in. But just thinking through, like, everything in my house needs to have a home. And before I bring something in, where's that home going to be? The third step is really just a routine and a habit that we build. And it's the habit of don't put it down, put it back, and teaching your kids the same thing. And that's everything from, you take a hot cup of coffee into the other room to sit down and read, or whatever you're going to do. And when you're done, are you just going to set it down and leave the room? Don't set it down, put it back. Take it to the kitchen and put it in the dishwasher. Or my family, I've been forever working with them, like, they'll bring dishes to the kitchen, but they just throw them in the sink. So it's okay, just that one other step, don't put it down, put it back. Where does that belong? It belongs in the dishwasher. And my kids are older. But it's a habit for us, and also a habit that we can pass on to our children. And it's not going to take long. It's just building that mindset of like, okay, this has a home. Where's that home? Let me go ahead and put it there. And then the fourth step to clutter control is I just said item in, item out. So if you think about the amount of things that come into your home every week, whether it's the things you need, like grocery shopping, or the little things that come in one way or another, there's always things coming in. Well, if there's always things coming in, we've got to also think about there's got to be things always going out. Now, there's the natural, trash that goes out. But one thing that I've learned is I keep a laundry basket in my closet, and that's the donation basket. And so as soon as you are doing something and you realize, wow, I don't really use this item anymore, go put it in the donation bag. Your kid puts something on and it doesn't fit anymore, and you have no reason to hold on to it and you're going to donate it, go put it in that basket. When that basket gets full, we bag it up, we take it, we donate it, and there's room for more. And so that's just an easy way to have the ongoing process, like you know where to put things. But just constantly evaluating, there's lots of things coming in, but are we also constantly letting those things go out? Lastly, I just want to talk a little bit about maintaining our home and thinking about, it's helpful to always take time to figure out the most efficient way of doing our regular jobs and then doing those jobs the same way every time. It sounds basic, but it saves us the mental energy of figuring it out all the time. I think of it as automating or making important things just routine within our life. And so a couple quick examples here, getting home. Often when we're getting home, there's 4 or 5 of us trying to enter the same space at the same time. And so just thinking through a routine of what's it going to look like for each person when they get home. For us, we enter through our garage, and our trash is in our garage. So on the way out of the car, take your trash with you and drop it in the trash can on your way in the house. As soon as you walk in our house, we have a shoe rack. That's where your shoes go. There's a coat rack. That's where your coat goes. We have a bin on our way upstairs for school bags that eventually they end up there when the kids get home from school, they need them. But there's a home for them and they have a routine for it. When I go upstairs, I have a place where my purse goes, a place where my keys go. I take my cell phone out, either charge it or put it up on the windowsill. It's routine. I don't think about it. It's natural. It's just how we do things. But when we're leaving the house, we're never looking for shoes, coat, keys, cell phone. It's all there. Automating, same thing if your kids play sports, if they're older. My daughter plays softball, so she has a softball bag. She has everything in there, and she's got a list of every time I go to practice, I need a water bottle, and that list is right there so she can double check herself. It's automated. We don't have to think every time, do we have everything we need? It's all in one place, it's together. At the end of softball season, we clean it out, and then soccer season's next, So you're constantly changing, but just trying to make those things automated and just making them as easy as they can be. Laundry. It's never done, right? It can be overwhelming, but what is a way that you can just stay on top of it, that you're constantly maintaining it? At our house, we have a laundry sorter in our hallway upstairs. So each person does their own laundry sorting. When they take off their dirty clothes, they're all in one place. I have a laundry basket every night. Whichever load is full in the sorter goes in the laundry basket, and I set it down by my basement stairs. My laundry's in the basement, I go to bed. When I get up in the morning, my son leaves first. I start the laundry. He leaves, my girls get up. By the time my girls leave for school, it's time to switch it over to the dryer. After school, I come back in through my basement. I see it. Clothes go into the basket upstairs. Sometime between the end of school and bedtime, I see it. It's clutter until I take care of it, fold that load of laundry, put it away, and the process starts all over again. So every day, one load of laundry, but I'm not thinking about it. It's just part of our routine. So for most of the time, our laundry is pretty caught up and under control. But again, it's just having those routines for those jobs, those things you're doing all the time. And I would encourage you to help your family to automate as well. Make it as easy as you can for them. If you're gonna ask children to clean up a space or do a job, which I encourage, you're training them, you're teaching them, cleaning the bathroom, whatever it is, you need to teach them the steps to that process and give them a guide to make it as easy as you can. When my kids were really little, I took pictures. Pictures help a lot because they can't read yet. I took pictures like, okay, you wake up, you eat breakfast, you brush your teeth, you get dressed, but it was all in order, and my kids could go, reference it, felt like they knew the next step. If you're gonna ask them to clean up a space, either make sure you've taught them, like, what is your expectation? And have you made it easy, like everything has a home and they know what to do? Give them a guide and then go back and inspect, and that's a huge step. If you just send them to do a job, it might happen, it might not. But if you say, look, when you're done, you come back and report to me, and we're gonna go take a look at it together, then you have a teaching time to say, hey, great job, but next time, this goes here, or this gets done this way. So you're teaching them and training them until they are masters of whatever that job is that you're asking them to do. Make a habit with your kids, if you're trying to maintain your home, of saying, you know what, and this is big at our house in the summer, you know what, before lunch every day, we are just gonna quickly straighten everything up, and then we'll sit down and have lunch together. Well, there's only so much time to make a mess before you're, putting things away that they're not working on anymore. Maybe you do that again before dinner and again before bed. So 3 times a day, if you're home a lot, it just helps keep it maintained. That way it's not overwhelming and you don't even know where to start. Sometimes in my house, things just feel out of control. Everybody's been doing different things. I have one daughter whose personality is to leave piles, and so she'll have a pile in every room. So I'll say, hey, 5 minutes. I set the timer on my phone for 5 minutes. Everybody jump in, and we're gonna take care of the clutter that we've now created. But everybody works together. It takes no time, and it's done. And so when things just feel chaotic, sometimes just those little periods of working together or setting those routines in your day so that it's not out of control. So I would be happy to answer questions now. I know you brought up a question.
It's the sentimentality that's being passed down, like every little thing that it has pronouns. This was great-grandma's so-and-so who has this china cup that is now yours, so you better take care of it because, and it's like, and you better pass it on to Leslie. And it's like, I don't know if, I read a wonderful article about a week ago, and it was about how people who lived about 95 have now passed on stuff to their baby boom kids, and now the baby boom kids want to pass it on to their kids, and their kids don't want it. Right. So like a mahogany bed set, for example, that has less value in the marketplace than a Fisher-Price 1970s farmhouse, believe it or not. Because people just don't want mahogany, they don't want the mass-produced sets anymore like that. They want their own set, and if they're going to spend anything, it's going to be something that's whimsical or quote-unquote brought joy, and that's what they'll spend their money on from something from the past.
Right.
And it's just a completely generational switch off, and that's what I'm trying to say to my in-laws. It's just like, please, no. I don't want the shoehorn from FEMA, okay? I don't need the cake pans. I have all that stuff.
Right.
Donate it,
Right. So
And then later on, it's like, then what happens is, all of a sudden, as I'm unpacking the car in my driveway, I see a box full of stuff that I said no to.
Yeah. So it's always trickier when you're dealing with emotions, right? And sometimes the decision isn't completely yours. I would say, helping, maybe mentioning, you know what, thanks for the cake pans, I already have some, but there's people who don't. So for this to get used, let's do this.
Yeah.
You know? And so it gives, you're saying to them, look, you don't want to degrade the value. Like what you have has value. They have a sentimental attachment. But how can we let that value be noticed and then that item be used?
We had the same thing happen to me, that happened to us a couple of years ago. My grandmother died, and then my husband's grandmother died within the space of like 2 months. And literally, it's okay, they were both elderly, you know, it happens. But we literally, my mother-in-law sent us 2 moving trucks. Irreplaceable family furniture. And then my aunt sent a moving truck. And it was all like the same week. It was kind of a nightmare. I was freaking out. My husband was like, well, we have to take grandma's stuff. And I was like, I don't want my grandma's stuff. Get it out of there. And so about a month later, I knew it was all coming, so we cleaned out our porch and we just loaded it all in the porch. And about a month later, I said, okay, I got a dumpster and I scheduled a Salvation Army and HDRM pickup. Because they will pick up furniture and they take it to a warehouse in Acton and they give it to people who really need it. And it's HDRM. And I scheduled all 3 of those things. And I said to my husband, if we really want a big piece of furniture or something, you know, a lot of our stuff is ratty, we've had it since college or, you know, whatever, like, it was somebody's mother, roommate's mother's, and it, you know, ended up in her house. So a lot of our stuff is ratty. So we said, you know, okay, we can get rid of this and replace it with this piece that was your grandmother's. And, you know, we sort of absorbed a lot of the stuff that we actually needed, but I traded out. I was like, all right, but this is gone. And we either went in the dumpster or one of the trucks. And we have enough of the big pieces that, like, if my mother-in-law comes, she sees her mother's big, there's this funky, like, thing from the 50s. It's got 2 tiers. It's the weirdest thing, but it's got a big old drawer, like, toys in there, and it's awesome. Like, you know, and she sees the dining room table and the chairs. Like, she can see enough of the stuff, and we obviously absorb quite a bit of it. My aunt doesn't really care because my grandmother saved everything and she just wanted it gone. But it really helped to have that. I pretty much told my husband, this day, this weekend, clear it out, we're not doing anything. The other thing you can do is for the other little stuff that you're just being gone, but he's never going to notice if you slip that shoehorn into the giveaway box. And a while later he'll say, where's that shoehorn? And you'll say, you know, we hadn't used it in 6 months, so I just made it go away.
When she came out of the box, she's like, here's it. I was like, are you kidding me?
I didn't say, you know,
and I
they
didn't
say,
but it's like,
I've got this tub, I've got this box for those
Yeah.
tubs. Like, this is how much space I have. Let's pick and choose.
Yeah.
What is important? What of all of this, you know, and that mug, you know, a teacup, well, maybe I can set that out with a candle in it, or maybe I can, like, how can we enjoy it instead of just storing it, you know, but picking and choosing, I think the same principles, it's just maybe not going to be as quick because you're working through emotion, but like she said, set some boundaries, set some...
I think that's the thing, is the boundaries, setting the boundaries.
Is it more challenging because your husband is on their side?
No,
Or does he
no,
have a difficulty with it?
he has a difficulty, he just plain has a difficulty with
So
getting
they load it all
up
on his side of the bed until.
No, it's just like, yeah.
I have another question or...
Well, it's not a question or anything to that.
Yeah.
I think sometimes it helps, you're helping some people unload their stuff. So I think the times that I have gotten things like that from the in-laws, I have made it clear, like, well, no, that looks good. I'm not sure if I'm going to use all of them. I'll be happy to take them if it helps you. But I want to let you know that, you know, I'll probably keep this one because I like it. But the other ones, if I have extras, I might give it to people that I know that would want it. And at that point, if they feel like they have to have it in the family, then they will take it back. trying to unload it because they have a hard time letting it go, unless they know they could give it to someone, then
Yeah.
they would then give it to you and say, sure, take what you want and give away the rest. And at that point, you have the permission to do just that. You know, you kind of help them to let go of the stuff, but you're not bound to have it.
Yeah.
You could donate it.
And just an interesting thing that's coming to my mind as we're having this conversation, we're all gonna grow old, hopefully. Someone's gonna deal with our stuff. And so even today, like the things that you're bringing in and how you're organizing and having clutter today is what you're gonna pass on to your children someday. So just, having that thought.
My mother-in-law is one of 11 children, and when both of her parents finally passed, some of those children had to go to the house and not only go through, your average living stuff, but the attic had bags and bags of like old Christmas cards from 40 years ago and all sorts of stuff. And I think it was an era where some things, they hid money in different places, and all that city today or whatever. So
They lived through the Great
kids had to
Depression.
go through it all, really.
Yeah.
But
I know someone who left 20,000 in a Rolodex.
How much?
20,000?
My husband found over 5,000 in his grandma's stuff when he cleaned out her house in Florida. Cash. He didn't keep one penny of it.
find any of yours.
But he's like, Jane, I just kept on finding more money, more money. So they
Ladies.
didn't have to go through everything.
We're gonna go ahead and move to some time just in small groups.
Yes, yeah. So we're going to move to small groups time to discuss things further. So what we're going to do is break up into 3 groups. I'm going to have this table stay here because there's a baby here, and Karen